Namaste. Welcome to today's video. This is the 16th in the overall series An Introduction to Sanatana Dharma, and it is the third video in the mini series, The Hindu Concept of God. We started this about two videos back. Today we speak about the concept of monotheism a little more in detail, or how that applies to Hinduism. Let's get into the video. So let's start with a very quick recap of the last two videos. We said that instead of God, the supreme being in Hinduism can be called Bhagavan or Ishvara instead of God, which does not mean the same thing actually. Plus, we also discussed that Hinduism not only has one God, but nothing but God, or only one Ishvara and nothing but Ishvara. We also spoke about the concept of Parabrahma, which is basically the supreme being without form, shape, or qualities. So Nirakara without form, Nirguna without qualities of any kind. When we say qualities, it refers to gender, shape, size, whatever it is. Kind of covers everything. So Nirguna Ishvara can be called Parabrahma. The Parabrahma is the Mula Karanam, Mula Vastu, the source material of everything. In fact, Parabrahma is everything. So Parabrahma is the only thing that ever was, is, and ever will be. We took the example of gold getting converted into ornaments, or mud getting converted into pottery. This is how Parabrahma takes form as the various gods, as various devatas, devis, and in fact the entire creation. So we ourselves are Parabrahma in a way. We'll come to that in probably the next video possibly. Uh, Apart from that, all the devatas, devatas are forms of Parabrahma. This was a quick recap of the Hindu concept of Ishvara or Parabrahma. Let's proceed a little more into detail here. Now, all of this sounds possibly like monotheism. Ultimately, yes. So again, we are again reiterating those two examples, that gold and ornaments, mud and pottery, plus the statement that I've been probably saying ad nauseum: nothing but Ishvara, nothing but Parabrahma exists as per Hinduism, and that is the way things are. All devatas are manifestations of this Parabrahma. Therefore, Hinduism is ultimately monotheistic. However, the beauty is, it does not say, while it says there is only one Ishvara, it does not say that you need to worship that Ishvara in that form only. The For example, in the Bhagavad Gita, yo yo yam yam tanum bhaktaha shraddhayarchitum ichhati is a shloka in the Bhagavad Gita. It goes on after that. So that way, uh, there is another very famous shloka, Sarvadeva Namaskaraha Keshavam Prati Gacchati. It's a statement in Sanskrit. Uh, Akashat patitam tojam yadha gacchati sagaram sarvadeva namaskaraha keshavam pratigacchati. The way uh, water, when it falls to the earth as rain, wherever it falls, ultimately it goes to the sea, uh, through the water cycle, whatever you call it. That way, whoever you worship, whoever you salute, that ultimately goes to Keshava. Now, Keshava actually means multiple things. Keshava is very commonly used to refer to Vishnu, because he killed a demon called Keshi, and therefore he was called Keshava. That is not the actual meaning. Keshava can mean multiple things. Keshava is actually derived from Ka, A, Isha. So Kesha. So he who embodies Ka, A, and Isha, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara in one form is Keshava or Brahma. Uh, the term also refers to he who has luminous rays. That way, sun god or Parabrahma. This is also a meaning of Keshava. And Keshava also means he who has beautiful hair, lustrous hair, beautiful hair, dark hair. So these are all meanings. Keshava, the meaning where Krishna killed the demon, Krishna or Vishnu killed the demon called Keshi and got the name Keshava, is what is called the Leelartha. The name which came because of the Leela, or because of a particular avatar. The ultimate meaning is the other two that I actually, in fact, there may be more. These are just two, where the embodiment of Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, creation, sustenance, and destruction. That is what the Supreme Being does. And uh, he who has luminous rays, who is light personified, so to say. All these things are also the meanings of Keshava. That way, Hinduism does not say that, okay, there is one God, you need to worship that God only like this. There is flexibility. Please understand, it does not mean that I will do whatever I want. That is a very common misconception. I will try to deal about this particular topic a little later. However, Hinduism gives a lot of freedom compared to any other faith within certain boundaries. Okay, the boundary is still there. So, for example, anything which is non-Vedic, not accepted by the Vedas, is not Hinduism. That's a blunt blanket statement. Okay, and that's the overall boundary or the confines within which freedom is given to the upasaka or to the devotee or the bhakta. Right now, we've always heard that Hinduism is a polytheistic religion. First of all, it's not wrong. We do have a lot of Devi Devatas. At the same time, we just described that Hinduism is monotheistic. So, uh, please look at works by this gentleman called Rajiv Malhotra. He has written very beautiful books on Hinduism, Sanatana Dharma, how it is different. Hinduism does not fit into the Western concepts of black and white absolutes. There's a lot of gray. There's a lot of fluidity that is available as part of the culture, as part of the faith. That way, Hinduism is monotheistic and polytheistic. So it is not one or two. So now it is obviously polytheistic also because you see a lot of devatas, devis, devas, and all. Ultimately, it is also monotheistic because there is but one Ishvara. Now, there are certain monotheistic principles that are associated with Hinduism. Let's look at just a few. For example's sake, very popular statement. I believe this is from the Vedas directly. It says, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahudha Vadanti. What this basically means, the truth is one, or what exists, Sat. We'll talk about that in the next slide, possibly. Ekam Sat, what exists is one. Vipra is a term that is often used for Brahmins. Actually, Vipra is somebody who has Visesha Prajna, or you can say extra sensory or super sensory knowledge or awareness is actually a Vipra. So the wise or the realized or the learned ones describe this oneness, this existence in various ways. So Ekam Sat Vipra Bahudha Vadanti. This is another statement that actually says how Hinduism is ultimately monotheistic. Then Ajayamano Bahudha Vijayate. Ajayamanaha Bahudha Vijayate. This is taken from the Purusha Sukta, from the Rig Veda. Basically means he who has no birth takes on many forms. Basically, that's the meaning of the statement, that he who has no birth takes various forms. Similarly, there is a statement from the Vishnu Sahasranamam, Eko Vishnu Mahatbhutam Prathak Bhutan Anekashaha. It is in the last part of the Vishnu Sahasranamam where people talk about the Phalasruti or the benefits of chanting the Vishnu Sahasranamam, where it is said, Ekaha Vishnu Mahatbhutam Prathak Bhutani Anekashaha. Eko Vishnu Mahatbhutam Prathak Bhutani Anekashaha. Vishnu is the ultimate being who is one. He takes on many forms. So these statements again talk about how Hinduism is ultimately monotheistic or talks about one divinity. At the same time, there is a lot of freedom given to the upasakas to worship worship divinity in various forms. Now, continuing this particular thread, in Hinduism, the first level of worship is basically where you worship your Ishta Devata. For example, I like Vishnu as a Deva or a Devata, might be my favorites. Okay, we all have our favorite foods, for example. Hindus, everybody is entitled to have his or her own favorite deity. I like Vishnu. Somebody might like Rama. Somebody else like Rudra, Shiva, Saraswati, Shakti, Lakshmi, Ganesha, Skanda, Surya. Uh, there is the Shanmata that we discussed a little while back, the six core divinities of Hinduism, and there are various avatars. So anybody can like his or her own manifestation of Parabrahma. This is what is called Saguna Brahmopasana. Saguna, basically, as we discussed a little while back, means that which has qualities. Now, these qualities or attributes, form, shape, noun, name, gender, though it is gender for just visualization sake. At the level of Parabrahma, there is no meaning for gender. There is no concept called gender. However, for the ease of my upasana, for the ease of my worship, I say that, okay, Vishnu is a male deity who has 4 arms, lives in Vaikuntha, sleeps on Adisesha, flies on Garuda, is the husband of Lakshmi. has Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma, wears the Kaustubhamani. This is all I will worship Vishnu using Tulasi Dala, for example, Ganga Jala. These are all part of what is called Saguna Brahmopasana. Now, even Vishnu, for example, has an iconic representation called the Salagrama. Everybody is familiar with the Linga. Now, the Linga obviously has a shape, but is not an anthropomorphic shape, right? So it is not the shape of a human being, so to say. It is not in the image of man or in the image of God. For those who get what I'm trying to say, they'll understand. So even Vishnu has a form to worship. And for those who wish to do it, there is something called a salagrama, which is called an ammonite fossil. Vishnu is worshipped in that. There is a form, but there is also no form. There is no anthropomorphic form. Ultimately, this can be called Saguna Brahmopasana. Parabrahma with gunas, Saguna, Upasana of that Saguna Parabrahma is called Saguna Brahmopasana. The next level is where I think, or in fact, 1 and 1.5, you can say probably, level 1 and level 1.5 are part of the same level, is where I realize that all deities, whether it's, so initially, okay, I like Vishnu, let me worship Vishnu. Nowhere does Hinduism ask uh, an upasaka to hate a deity, whether Hindu, non-Hindu, it's not mentioned. It is just that whatever is not Vedic, don't follow it. You don't need to hate something, right? And especially inside Hinduism, a lot of Vaishnavas don't like Shiva, a lot of Shaivas don't like Vishnu. This is against Vedic principles. Okay. Now, initially, okay, I like Vishnu. Then slowly I say that, okay, all deities are form of Vishnu. So there is an Annamacharya Kirtana, Hari Avataramule Sakala Devatalu. All deities are forms or incarnations of Vishnu. Nothing wrong with that. Somebody else will say that all deities are forms of Shiva. Somebody else might say all deities are forms of Shakti. Nothing wrong with that. So initially, we worship a particular deity. Then we say that, okay, all deities, or as part of this first level, we can say that all other deities are manifestations of this deity that I like. The ultimate realization is to understand that there is no deity with form in reality. That is where it is. The concept is Nirguna Brahma. There is no quality. Here, there is no longer any upasana. You cannot worship anything which does not have form. So there is no worship anymore. It is kind of meditation. You just kind of meditate upon Nirguna Brahma. Therefore, there is no term called Nirguna Brahmopasana. Uh, Upasana or any kind of worship can be there only when you have something with form. And this is one secret behind the so-called idol worship, which we'll talk about later. That way, so the first level is I worship Ishvara, my Ishta Devata, the one I like. Then I say that all deities are forms of this Ishta Devata. And ultimately I say that my Ishta Devata is also the manifestation of Parabrahma. Ultimate realization is there is just one Parabrahma. This is how Hinduism, from a mortal or a human perspective, moves from being polytheistic to monotheistic. So for our daily understanding, you can't eat uh, pills, right? For example, multivitamins, that's not food. I like a potato fry, somebody like brinjal, something, dal. We like so many kinds of food. All are food, but they are different forms of food. That way, there are different forms of Ishvara. Ultimately, everything is nourishment or food. Ultimately, everything is Parabrahma. That is how Hinduism starts being starts as a polytheistic culture for normal people like us, and ultimately takes that upasaka to the level of nirguna dhyana, or the that concept where it is only Parabrahma, there is no shape, form, gender, so on and so forth. That is the reason Hinduism is unique. It is polytheistic and ultimately monotheistic. There are certain descriptions. So though we say that Ishvara is Nirguna, for our understanding, we can say that there are three defining aspects of Parabrahma: Sat, Chit, Ananda. The Vedas or the Upanishads also refer to this concept as Asti, Bhati, and Priyam. So what do they mean? Sat, also referred to as Asti, not Asti, please. Sanskrit, as I said, Indic languages, especially Sanskrit, and because it is highly derived from that, Telugu, and I think Kannada that way. The change of a letter changes the meaning completely. Asti means bones, or actually astulu in Telugu, right? Plural of asti is what is left once the body is cremated. Asti. There is no ha. It is asti. It is not asti. Okay. So sat or asti basically refers to existence. Not necessarily truth. The truth is that Parabrahma exists. God or Ishvara or Parabrahma just is. There was never a time he or she was not there. There will never be a time when he or she will not be there. So that is the first defining aspect of Parabrahma, Sat or Asti. Then we talk about Chit or Bhati. This basically refers to consciousness, pure consciousness or light. Bhati, Bha, that wherever you see this, more or less, there obviously may be exceptions. I'm not learned enough. Bhaskara, Bhaswara, Bhati. Wherever you see this Bha, it typically refers to the presence of light or to light itself, to glow, Prakasha. So Chit Bhati refers to consciousness, wisdom, not worldly wisdom, pure consciousness. So intelligence, not again in the, so that's why I said, right, neti neti, difficult to describe these things. If I try to describe, I'm actually doing something wrong. So Chit or Bhati refers to consciousness or light. This is the second defining attribute of Parabrahma. Third is Ananda, also called Priyam. Uh, that which is dear to us. That which is dear to us is that which causes us happiness. Please remember this statement. It's a very interesting, very loaded statement. We like something because it gives us happiness. Okay. Please just remember that. In a later video, I will most probably come back to that particular statement. Uh, we like something because that is something which gives happiness to us. Okay. That way, Sat or Asti, existence, Chit or Bhati, consciousness or light, Ananda, Priyam, bliss, supreme bliss, whatever we have. So Sri Shanmukha Sarma calls this Brahmananda, and he calls all normal happiness that we have in the world Brahmananda. So at his level, probably he can say Brahma basically means illusion, right? For us, it is not an illusion. Obviously, for normal human beings, whatever joys we have in life are not illusions. They are obviously something which impact us very materially. However, for somebody realized, the worldly joys are Brahmanandas, and the supreme bliss or Ananda is actually Brahmananda. That way, Satchidananda, Sat Chit Ananda, Asti Bhati Priyam. These are the defining aspects of Parabrahma. Now, let me end this particular video with this slide. Why don't we leave this reality? So we just discussed that there is nothing but Ishvara or Parabrahma. But we don't see that, right? For us, everybody is separate. I recognize a mother, a father, a wife, a loved one, a hated one, somebody who drives me up the wall, somebody who lights up my eyes. Uh, there is a car. Everything is different from me. I think we live in a discrete world, tangible world. Everything is separate. There is no this whatever unity we've been talking about till now. It's not something that we experience in daily lives, right? Why is that so? Hinduism says this is because of something called avidya or maya, or rather, maya puts us in a state of avidya or ignorance where we do not understand this reality. So, what is maya? Put very simply, it is a shakti of Ishvara, whereby two things happen. They are practically the same. We perceive duality where it does not exist, and we do not perceive the reality. The reality is that there is nothing but Parabrahma. We don't see that. And then we see dualities, or we see creation as being separate from the creator. A person who is realized, an enlightened being, so to say, a bodhisattva possibly, in the words of Buddhism, a lot of people might have heard this phrase, a bodhisattva, a realized being, an enlightened being, a mukta, a jivan mukta, one who is liberated. I don't like that term salvation. And as we said, some time back. This is not about heaven or hell. It is beyond heaven and hell. Somebody who is a Jivan Mukta, who is a liberated, realized being, an enlightened being, a Bodhisattva, an Avadhuta, does not perceive these dualities. He or she perceives the creation and the creator to be one. So, again, in the words of Sri Sharma, when we go to a movie, right, when we go to a magic show, we might become engrossed in that movie, in that magic show, but we still know that, okay, this is a movie that is that is something being shown on a screen, or there is a magician behind this magic show. We are aware of this. A Jivan Mukta, a liberated person, is like that. They see the entire creation as Ishvara's Leela, and they also perceive the hand, or they perceive actual Ishvara behind the entire Leela. People like us, we don't do that. We've not yet reached that state. So liberated beings are beyond this duality or this Maya. And because of that, they not only see the show, they are not immersed in it, because they know that this is not what actually is. They see the magician behind the magic show also. So they are in the world, but not of the world. So there is again a Sanskrit saying, Padma Patram Evambhasa. Padma Patram Eva Ambhasa. Basically, like a lotus leaf in the water. So when there's a lotus leaf in the water, or there's also this English saying, right? The way water runs off the back of a duck. Let's not get into biology, but the basic point is, when water is put on a lotus leaf, it does not soak or wet it. It slips off the lotus leaf. That way, samsara, the world, does not impact a liberated being. So Maya, or samsara, the world, uh, exists, but the Jivan Mukta, the liberated person, while being in samsara, is not impacted by it. So, for example, there was Ramana Maharshi, Bhagavan Sri Ramana. A lot of people might have heard of him. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Towards the end of their lives, they were impacted. I think both of them had cancer. However, now imagine a normal person getting cancer. At their state of realization, for them, they did not get cancer. So when, imagine, we talk about them, we say that Ramakrishna Paramahamsa had a disorder, or Sri Ramana had a disorder. They don't perceive it. They did not perceive it like this. They perceived it that this body got cancer. So they do not say I got cancer, because they know that this I and this body are not the same. We think they are the same because of Maya or Avidya. And this Maya or Avidya is what prevents normal human beings like you and me from perceiving Parabrahma or Ishvara. Let me end this particular video here. We'll talk about a few more related concepts in the forthcoming videos. Thanks a lot. Today is Subramanya Shashti, Margasira Suddha Shashti. Just a point of trivia for those who are interested. I believe this is the birthday of Kartikeya Subramanya Skanda, one of the 6 in the Shanmata school of thought. One is Skanda, obviously. So today is his birthday, also called Subramanya Shashti, the Shashti, the 6th day of the bright fortnight in the Margasirsha month. Interestingly, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita also says, Masanam Margasirshosmi. So there is, I think it's called the Vibhuti Yoga. I've not read the Bhagavad Gita, but basically he compares himself to certain things. So he says that I am Sri Rama among those who wield weapons. I am the lion among animals. So he compares himself to a supreme concept in various aspects of creation. So in time, in the year, among the months, he says, Masanam Margasirshosmi. Margasirshaha Asmi Masanam. So he says he's the month of Margasirsha among the various months. Obviously, those who are from Tamil Nadu and Vaishnavas in Andhra, again, a very important month. Chennai and all, there's the Margadi Music Festival. And the this is also called Dhanurmasa. So Vaishnavas extremely important from that perspective. So pretty important month that we are in right now. Kartika and Margasirsha two extremely important months. Again, another illustration. So Kartika is generally associated with Shiva. Again, there is Kartika Damodara Vishnu, Margasirsha Vishnu. So you see that both of them are next to each other. So again, we go back to that concept, Ishtadevata, Hari Avataramula Sakala Devatalu. All deities are forms of that Ishtadevata. Ultimately, there is but one Parabrahma. Let me end this video, today's video on this particular note. Thank you for watching this video. Please take care. Namaste.